I'm Dan, and this is 10,000 Hours of Indie, a podcast exploring new music and delving deeper into what goes on in the background of the independent music industry. I'm a musician and passionate music lover, and I wanted to delve deeper into new music in the independent scene around the world. I also saw this as a chance to help artists connect and share their stories, so if there's someone you hear and you want to find out more about, every podcast has links in the show description. Get involved, help this community grow, follow on the 10,000 Hours of Indie socials, you can find all the links in the show description. And also feel free to email me about anything music related, 10,000indie@gmail.com. I'm open to any ideas and love listening to your promos. Pastel Blank is the brainchild of Angus Watt and features a revolving door of members from the Vancouver area in which he is based. The debut album Unmade in Minutes was released on April the 24th and dips its musical toes into pop, funk, disco and way more. Somewhere it says this is art rock, I guess that works too. It certainly doesn't sound like a debut album and I'm loving it, so let's delve in. Hi Angus, welcome to the podcast.
Hey Daniel, thanks for having me.
What is a Pastel Blank?
That's a good question. There's really nothing behind it. It's just a very inoffensive combination of words that I schemed up with a friend when we were trying to come up with a band name. And I think that it's tricky with band names. I feel like they all sound goofy at first, and then they really just become meaningless the more that you say them. So I just felt like this is a good open palette sort of name that feels like it could be any sort of project.
So what led you to this project? What was your sort of background and how did the band get together?
I suppose really just with these songs and the ones on the previous record, a lot of just tinkering around and coming up with demos at home and a very piecemeal sort of way of writing, of sort of fitting together all of these guitar parts and bass parts and trying to make something that feels like it would be impossible to play on its own with one person, like it requires a band to play, which is funny starting from that point doing it by myself in the basement, but then it very quickly, has turned into just a collaboration between a lot of different people between Vancouver and Montreal, where I'm living now. Very lucky to work with a lot of different people on this project. And I guess just by nature of all of the different bands that friends play in, there's sort of a very, especially in Montreal right now, it's a shared pool of musicians that we all, just play together in many different formations. So, I suppose definitely coming from a place of just wanting to be playing with friends and have them help bring these songs to life and then also bring in their own contributions. It's very, very joyful.
I think overall in Canada right now, the music scene is absolutely amazing. I speak to more Canadian bands than I do from anywhere else right now, and I'm very excited about what's going on over there at the moment musically.
Yeah, there's some great scenes out here. I mean, I feel like in every city there's just a different pocket, and I'm quite happy to be living out east now in Montreal, and I mean, Vancouver's got an amazing scene too. If you go to Green Auto any night of the week, it's bound to be a good show there, and I used to live in Victoria on the island, and I left about 3 years ago, but it's cool seeing now just sort of what's taking place there and the band's starting up, and always inspiring to go back and just see who's getting into playing shows and putting out music.
So what are your influences? I can at least hear some Talking Heads in there at times, but what else inspires you to make music?
Yeah, Talking Heads is definitely a big one, but I think a lot of sort of 70s funk and disco and art rock and, pop and disco, I think it's appealing to me to try to blend the pop sensibility and packaging and using that as a vehicle to sort of package in some weirder influences. I mean, Here Come the Warm Jets by Brian Eno, I feel like is a good example of this, where there's a lot of very sugary, sweet moments that feel poppy, but you're also listening to him sing and you're like, this guy has quite a strange voice and his lyrics are bizarre, and I kind of love that juxtaposition. And I think there's there's a few different sides to Pastel Blank. I feel like there's sort of the smoother, more groovy side that is really taking its influences from anybody from ABBA to Prince to just an old LP you'd find crate digging, and then mixing that with a bit more of a terse, jittery, interlocking guitar work. I mean, Television was a big band for me. I love how they slot their guitars together. And that's just, I guess, how my brain has worked with making music. It's just feeling like building Lego or something, like all of these different parts lock into each other. I guess one of the driving forces, at least for this record and the last, is thinking about what is going to feel really good to play on stage and what's going to feel really good live, and moments that feel exciting and captivating, and just taking influences from the shows that I had gone to where it just was clear that the band was having an amazing time on stage and a ton of fun. I feel like that's very infectious, and yeah, it makes the show feel less like a separation of like band and audience, but almost more like there's a contract between the band and the audience to be like, okay, we're gonna do our part to make this a very fun evening, and I feel like the audience upholds that by dancing.
So you've previously released an EP, Pastel Blank, but with a C, so the French way, back in 2022. How do you think this album differs from that EP?
I think that the first album is definitely almost stays more true to the initial demos that I did, which were pretty skeletal. I feel like the new album's a lot more maximalist and fitting in a lot more sounds. I think there's a more wackiness that dial is turned up, and I think shortly before recording the second album, I had started playing with a 6-piece band with a percussionist playing congas and really just about any percussion instrument under the sun. Hanum, amazing musician, but he brought in all of these percussion instruments, and it was like, wow, this really adds fuel to the fire, and it would be great to make a record that feels this exciting. And yeah, so I feel like the first one is a bit more, not laid back, but maybe just a bit more, not even lo-fi really. I feel like it was quite nicely recorded, but maybe more like a lo-fi spirit, I guess, of more indie rockish, I guess, whereas the new one feels a bit more like 3D or something. I guess both albums kind of embrace a bit of a all over the place genre thing. Like each song feels like its own sort of corner stylistically. At least like that's how I guess I'm thinking about it when I'm writing, is like, oh, I want this to have sort of a chic feel in this section. Or, I really want this song to briefly feel like Unwound or Polvo or something. So, yeah, I guess they have that similarity going for them, but they're definitely quite different. I haven't listened to them back to back, but did hear a song from the first album the other day, and I was like, wow, this is really different. So it'll be curious to see what LP3 is like, or I suppose LP2.
So you said the first 3 tracks are almost like siblings to each other. Was that the reason they were chosen as the promo singles for the album?
Yeah, I think that they all felt sort of intertwined thematically, and it just made sense to roll them out and kind of get in at the loose concept of the album. But yeah, they do really feel all quite related to each other. I mean, even sonically with like Sweet Nick and Shareholder, those are both songs with an abundance of percussion between the very techie drum part and just all of the many, many layers. I mean, Dopamine as well has, if I could show you the Google Drive folder with all of the stems for the percussion instruments, it's just endless. There's so many layers.
The album's very upbeat, with some amazing guitar riffs, intricate drums and layered vocals. What is your starting point when you're creating something that becomes so big?
Usually guitar. That's just, it's my main instrument. I've played it for a very long time. I write a bit on piano as well, but yeah, I feel like usually that's sort of the seed, and then there's sort of, usually just a part that feels captivating or interesting. And I think in the best of circumstances, usually, writing the bones of the song and the melody and well, it's really nice when it all comes together at once, but you don't always get that luxury. So I feel like often it kind of turns into a bit more of a tinkering process of being like, okay, well, I've got this part and it feels like it has these sort of pockets or holes or grooves that another part could fit into and really bolster. And that usually is how it goes. And it's sort of a iterative process of coming up with something and being like, I think I could hear like this sort of synth part in there. And, vocals are always quite fun. I feel like I end up doing like endless layers of harmonies that then later live, I'm like, how are we going to recreate these? But luckily, I've been getting more and more bandmates to sing, so that helps.
Track 5 is Big Man, a total departure from the upbeat dancey themes in the rest of the album. It's kind of a bossa nova ode to the great 60s stuff with a similar sound. Why did you feel the middle of the album was where that track should sit?
Yeah, I went back and forth on that one. I nearly had it at the end of the album, but I guess I just quite like the song, and I felt that bumping it up in the album order would be potentially have it heard more. But I think also it serves nicely as an end of side one, sort of palate cleanser, especially after the 4th track, Radiator, which is my good friend Jameson, who plays guitar with the Montreal lineup of the band. He's described it as, like broken glass on a tin roof is the feeling he gets from that song, of just very like intense, kind of constantly changing up, very like angular and sharp, and then yeah, just a nice little cool aftertaste. You get the flutes and clarinets, and I think to break up the album a bit. And I mean, it's funny when you have all these tracks that are kind of all over the place, and you're like, okay, how do I sequence this? What kind of order do I want? What kind of experience are we wanting to provide here? And yeah, I went back and forth on many different track listings, but this one felt right.
What were the challenges of making this album? Was there any one song that was particularly banging your head against a brick wall trying to get it right at any stage, or was it all quite simple and straightforward?
I think one of the trickiest parts is fighting the condition known as demoitis, where you get very tied to the original recordings you make of the song, which, you know, in most cases I'm like, well, I would never actually release these demos, but there's a certain magic when you're just sort of writing and coming up with things on the fly. So I guess that was tricky. And then probably my own time management would be the other major challenge. It took quite a while, but what was quite fun was, I mean, a song like Shareholder, you know, the original demo of it's very, very different. It's quite light and open, and there's, I mean, honestly, like one of the inspirations for it, at least for the verse guitar part, was I Want You Back by the Jackson 5, and I initially had this sort of like 60s Motown thing in mind for it. And I think the more people that we brought, like the more people that added to it and collaborated with, like Hanum came up with the woodblock part in the chorus, and that just really propelled it forward. And then my good friend Brennan, he added a lot of the additional production of, you know, in the bridge you hear sort of a cackling laugh, and there's this crazy synth part that comes in, and he really elevated the songs in terms of just adding his touches with sort of little sonic ear candy. Yeah, maybe the challenge would have been sort of dialing in a sound that feels like it accurately reflected the live set, and the energy of that while also feeling very like precise and intentional. And I feel like it balances that pretty well.
Favourite song on the album?
I do quite like Big Man. It is definitely a stylistic outlier. It doesn't really feel like a Pastel Blank song. I mean, I now mostly play it in my solo sets or with another group I play with that's a bit more in the folk world. I'm also quite partial to the last song, Pale White Prince and Never Seen the Waters. I mean, that was an interesting one where, at least for Pale White Prince, we kind of, it was initially like I had this Graceland-y guitar part for it, and at the last minute kind of just tore it down, and Connor and I reworked it into what it is now, which is a bit more dreamy, but we just kept the drum beat and used that as the basis for reworking it. But I re-listened to that the other day, and that was quite liked it, and there's that interesting sort of transition from one song to the other with the metric modulation, which I took no part in. The drummers in the room, Oliver and Hanum and Connor all had their hand in that.
Moving on to social media. Alongside the serious side of Instagram, posting show dates, etc., you seem to be quite light-hearted about your pictures. How conscious are you of remaining relaxed with your social posts and not taking it too seriously?
You know, it's funny, I was actually just talking about this. A friend who's a photographer, and he's asking me what we do for media, and I was thinking, I was like, I don't really do much for media. It just kind of happens to be whatever is in my camera roll at the moment, or I'll usually do a quick temperature check in the group chat and see what everybody has on their phones, and it feels the most natural. I think I should probably take it more seriously. I don't know, I see some people's social media and I'm like, wow, you're quite good at this game and making very nice content. And I think it's just easier in our case to try to get a picture of whatever ridiculous thing is happening while we're hanging out and then running with that. But yeah, it's funny with this element of getting your brand across on social media and sort of choosing like how you want to be seen. And I feel like the relaxed stuff is maybe just a bit more reflective of what you're going to get when you come to a Pastel Blank show, which is fairly like lighthearted and fun and tongue-in-cheek for sure.
Continuing the Instagram thoughts, whose car roof were you standing on?
Oh, jeez. That's Ethan, who plays drums in Pastel Blank in Montreal, and he is the proud owner of is it a Pacifica? Beautiful van, and God bless him for driving us to every show. And that was definitely a quite sleep-deprived, informed decision to get up there. I'm working out in BC right now and had flown back to Montreal on a red-eye to play the album release show there, and then we drove to Toronto the next day, and I was leaving the morning after the show at 7 a.m. So it was just really, sleep-addled choice to get up there. I think we were going to Jerk King, this Jamaican restaurant, and I was just really excited. The post-show meal is a big source of joy.
On YouTube, you have a visualizer video for Radiator by Dr. Cool. Tell us more about that, because it is a cool video.
Yeah, Jordan is amazing. He is a super talented animator who I wanted to work with for a while, and he has this band Slam Dunk, who I actually remember seeing in Victoria in 2015, I think, and they put on one of the most amazing shows I've ever seen at Wheelies. And I mean, talk about a fun, joyous live band. My God. I remember seeing their drummer, whose name I can't remember. They were set up in an outdoor parking lot, and he was against a brick wall, but I remember seeing him toss a drumstick back up over his head, bounce it off of the wall, and then grab it out of the air to hit the next beat. And it was just very impressive. But yeah, I felt very lucky to work with him. He's did a great job just kind of incorporating all of these images from the song and making it quite seamless.
You've already played 2 release shows. How were they?
They're amazing. Yeah, it was great. I feel there's a lot of dancers in Montreal, which is always a great feeling. And then Toronto was a great time as well. It was a joy to get over there, and I'm quite excited to be getting out. We're going on tour in June, and I'm going to be playing in Vancouver and all over BC and Alberta, and quite nice to do the victory lap for this record and celebrate the album 0th birthday.
And you also had Rise Carmine, who's been a previous guest, as support for one of your shows as well. I love his music. Yeah,
he's fantastic. Liam's great. Yeah, Rise Carmine and Torrent were amazing. That was a fantastic show. They also played in Toronto. They're like a 6-piece post-punk band and just very cool and creative. And in Montreal too, the other bands, Shunk and Last Waltzin, hugely recommend. Both such just like full of energy and very cool bands I would recommend checking out, and definitely part of the larger fabric of the Montreal scene.
I guess any band that shares a stage with you has to have a lot of energy and quite an exciting live show, because you guys are quite energetic and exciting live.
Yes. Though, once in a while I do like a chaotic pairing of where you're like, this doesn't really make sense. I think one day we should do a show with like a singer-songwriter, just like solo set, and really embrace the extremes. But it is nice when you can curate the night and have it be... I think some of my favorite shows have been when it's sort of like there's a through line of dancing and it feels like each band is sort of geared towards creating a very fun environment.
You mentioned you've got a bunch of shows throughout June, but then you've also got the Festival d'Et in Quebec, which has an absolutely amazing lineup. You must be pretty chuffed to be on there.
Yeah, it's incredible. I was just looking at the lineup again today. I mean, it's a massive festival, I think like 10 days or something, and they've got everybody from Limp Bizkit to Michael Bublé to Patrick Watson, who I think we're playing on the day that Patrick Watson's playing. But yeah, I believe we're sharing a stage we're opening for La Sécurité, and they're amazing. I haven't seen them yet, but I've heard great things about them. We previously played at a festival in Quebec City called Saint Roche XP, and I believe it's put on by the same people, and they just treat you so well. Like, I've never had such a good... I truly felt like royalty. I mean, they had gear runners because we were playing 4 sets across 2 days, and they had people loading up your gear for you and bringing it to the stage, and we're all like, wow, this is amazing. So I'm quite excited for this summer's edition, and we're also playing at Sure Blues in Sherbrooke, which I'm quite excited for. That'll be a great show too. It feels like these places have invested in a lot.
You've got these shows coming up. That will take you to the end of the summer. What's next?
Ooh, what's next is we've got some more touring plans for the fall. Still just being firmed up, but might not be allowed to say yet for some of them. But some festivals and shows on the east coast of Canada, and I believe we're making it across the pond for some shows. I'm just waiting on confirmation for that, but that would be quite exciting. And then some tentative plans to get back out to BC and Alberta again in November for some festivals there. And I'm really hoping to start recording in December. We've got a new batch of material that I'm quite excited about. So it'll be nice to sort of start working on the next thing, and then, take another 3 years to do that, and hopefully shorter this time.
So the final question, what music are you listening to at the moment that people may not be aware of and should take some time to check out?
I've been quite excited about the new Twisted Teens album, Blowing the Clown. They're a band from New Orleans, and all the music they've put out is incredible. Just fantastic lyricism and very funny. And they're playing in Montreal in July. I'm quite excited to go see that show. I've also been listening to Love by Amen Dunes. A friend recently got me into it, and it's just been blowing my mind. Like, it's truly, such beautiful music. I'm not sure this is much of a deep cut, but Diamond Jubilee by Cindy Lee that came out a couple of years ago is always a big one for me. I mean, there's just so much on that album to get into, and it just feels like its own world. Nora Kelly Band has a new album coming out. You should listen to that. We're going to be going on tour together in June, and I've heard some of the album, and it's amazing, so I would definitely recommend. As well as Super Duper by Hooper, another fantastic record that came out that I did play on with about half the lineup of Pastel Blank with Ethan and Rachel and Isaac. But Shane is a fantastic songwriter, and I couldn't recommend him enough. Mego, another dear friend who I'm lucky to play with, she's releasing her new music right now. She's been putting out some singles, and they're incredible, just very expansive, world-building sort of, I don't want to put it in a box and call it folk, but it's got some of those elements. But yeah, she's incredible. I would really recommend going and checking out what she's been working on.
Okay, I've got a lot to listen through there. Thank you.
Amazing.
So for people wishing to find out more about Pastel Blank, check their website, pastelblank.com, and they're on Instagram, YouTube, and Bandcamp. Unmade in Minutes by Pastel Blank is out now on Paperbag Records, with vinyl available via Bandcamp and to stream on all the usual platforms. Angus, thanks for joining me. It's been a pleasure to chat about the album, and I really do genuinely love the album as well, so good luck with it.
Daniel, thank you so much. It was great chatting with you, and we'll hopefully see you in the UK or in the Netherlands.